The college basketball experience, Atlantic Sun, a.k.a. the ASUN, Conference 2024-25 season preview edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with our promo code TCESGPN to score up to $1,000 bonus in cash. That is the Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going over to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM today. And welcome everybody into the college basketball experience. ASUN style. We're talking Atlantic Sun, and oh boy, we have been all over this conference this offseason. We were doing the math before the show. We have had over half the coaches on our show this offseason, so we are officially a ASUN podcast. Love this league. Love the coaches, love the programs, and this is a fun basketball league, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to preview each and every team, give out our preseason 1 through 12 predictions, and, of course, give out our tournament champion at the very end. But first off, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin. Also known as Mac Tonight over here at the College Experience, and we are in our season preview. So we got to bring this guy on. You guys know him from the college baseball experience, the college basketball experience, the college football experience. He's everywhere on the college experience. He is the window banging, drywall hanging, LeBaron driving, Noah Bieniek, a.k.a. Noah B77. What's up, Bieniek?
What's up, Mac? Let's talk some ASUN basketball. I'm super excited for this show. Like you said,
Hell yeah.
You've interviewed 7 of the 12 coaches in this league. I went back and listened to last year's conference preview. You were on a bachelor's weekend in Vegas, unfortunately, so you had to miss it.
Rush.
But yeah, throw Rush under the bus. But Colby and I were on the preview for the episode. Colby picked Florida Gulf Coast not only as his sleeper, but as the regular season conference champ. They finished 6th, so neither one of them were able to come through. Or, sorry, he picked Florida Gulf Coast as his regular season champ and tournament champ. They finished 6th, so a little bit of a disappointment there. I picked Eastern Kentucky, so I drilled the regular season conference winner. And then my tournament champ, I picked Austin Peay in the preseason because I believed in a lot of the Northwestern State players that jumped over to Austin Peay. Yeah, so they were my sleeper team. They finished 4th, so you can check that sleeper box off. Colby's sleeper was Stetson. They finished 3rd, so check mark there as well. We both hit.
And won the tourney.
Yeah, and they won the tournament, so we both hit the sleepers. And then Colby's bust was North Alabama, who finished 7th. So didn't come through on the bust. My bust was Queens, finished 8th. That's kind of right on the border for a conference with only 11 teams, or with 12 teams last year. So I don't know if I'll count that for myself. But overall, I would say I drilled the regular season winner. Colby was really high on the conference tournament winner in the preseason. We both hit our sleepers. That was a pretty solid preview last year.
Yeah, I would have got it right. I think I would have taken EKU. I love A.W. Hamilton, man. They were bringing back all that experience from the CBI title the year before. I think it was CBI or CIT. I can't remember which tourney. But they played an entertaining brand of basketball. And then I probably would have talked myself into the Govs being a sleeper. So shout out to the Govs. But one thing about this league, Noah, you can really make the case that every team was somewhat not far from being in that middle tier. Like you look at it, last place was Bellarmine, a.k.a. Bellarmine on this show. We know how good of a program that is. They lost a bunch of close games, and they went 4-12. If that's your worst team, that kind of shows the parity in this league.
And specifically with Bellarmine, their roster was ravaged with injury. I believe that they had more injuries than Wagner. Just Wagner's roster was a little bit less. Wagner was playing with like 7 players at the end of the year. At some point during the year, I believe Bellarmine was starting like 2 or 3 walk-ons.
Yeah. It was. I mean, they all look like walk-ons. If we're being honest here, shout out to the staples at Bellarmine. I love Bellarmine, but yeah, it's a veteran coaches league too. Kind of when the more and more I was sitting down with these guys, and just a lot of different styles. What sucks though, man, they get killed by the portal a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of their really good players, whether it's Chaz Lanier, go to the SEC. ACC and Big 10, Big 12, they kind of get killed by the portal, but it also speaks to my point. The coaches find a way to reload and have competitive programs year in and year out.
100%. And I went back and I tried to figure out the rhythm to the madness of the league. And, nobody finished with a record above 500 in road games during conference play a season ago. Beautiful. Not a single team. Beautiful. There were 2 teams that finished 500. I mistakenly didn't write it down. Jacksonville went 0-8 on the road last year.
Come on now. We got to get some road.
And then Central Arkansas and Bellarmine were the only 2 programs that were below 500 at home last year. And they were your 11th and 12th place finishers. You ready to talk ASUN basketball preview?
I mean, I was the only guy talking ASUN in the months of July and August. You think on September 19th, I'm ready to talk ASUN? Hell yeah, let's go, baby.
All right. I'm going to have to make you wait like another minute. Is that okay?
What's that?
The war against corporate gambling is heating up. And SGPN needs to do your part. If you can take just a couple of seconds to rate, review, subscribe, follow, wherever you're listening to the show, whether it be on YouTube or podcast platform, it helps us out tremendously for the college basketball experience, college football experience, college baseball experience, the Big 12 college experience, or the sports gambling podcast. Anything in the SGPN network, go over there. If you have a second, just drop a like, leave a review, subscribe. It helps us out a ton. Most importantly, tell a friend, because the word of mouth has been the heartbeat of SGPN since 2011. All right. So the ASUN was next up in our reverse order of Ken Pom ratings from the final tip of last year's season. And we're going to go in alphabetical order here, previewing the ASUN. We started off with the Austin Peay Governors from a season ago. Pardon me, flipping over. I don't know why I wrote the note down on a different page than my conference preview notes. For Austin Peay, they returned 23.1% of their minutes from a season ago, which was the 10th least in this conference and 9th least experienced team coming in to the preseason here in the ASUN. Roster wise, let's talk about who they lose, because they lose 4 guys who played over 30 minutes a game last season, none bigger than DeMarcus Sharp, also his backcourt partner, and Jamonte Black. Both of those were the Northwestern State transfers that came in. Both of them were monsters. Sharp, 17 points per game, 6.5 boards, 4.2 assists, 2 steals a game. And then Jamonte Black was 12 points a game, 3.5 boards. They also lose Des White, who played 32 minutes a game, 8 points per game, 3 boards a game. And then Desi Jones, 31 minutes a game, 14.5 points, 3.5 boards, 3.5 assists, over 1 steal per game as well. Jordan Wilmore, Ashton Smith, Jonathan Dunn, Ashton Smith. Again, I don't know why I said his name twice. Harrison Black and Jalen Ware, they all transfer out here. And then, so that's who they lose. Coming in, they did pretty well. LJ Thomas is the big one, coming in from NC State. He only played 7.5 minutes a game a season ago. He averaged 2.5 points in that short sample size, shooting 57% from deep. So if you expand that a little bit, this is a guy that I'm sure Corey Gipson, head coach over here at Austin Peay, is hoping that this one pans out. And if so, this LJ Thomas could be a prolific scorer in the ASUN. Also, speaking of prolific scoring, 64th ranked JUCO recruit Takao Carpenter played or put up 13.5 points per game, 3.5 boards, 3 assists at Moberly last season. Also from Moberly, same team, Akili Evans, a 6'5" redshirt junior who put up 10.5 points per game, 6.5 boards, 3 assists. And then so this guy was at Mizzou last year, didn't play with the Tigers, but Anton Brookshire, he was originally from Iona. He transfers in. Mikkel Burries from D2 Lincoln Memorial, Darius Dawson, a 6'6" senior from D2 Missouri Southern, and then Quan Lax from NAIA Freed Hardeman, a team that bounced out my baseball team in the postseason 2 years ago. One big name here coming back from last season was Cy Witt, the big man, 6'8" graduate senior, played 21.5 minutes per game, averaged 13 points, 5.5 boards, shot at 53.6% from the field. And then another returnee senior, Isaac Haney, 30.5 minutes per game, 11.5 points per game, 4 boards, 38% from deep. Mac, your governors, let us know how you feel about him entering this season.
Yeah, so the Govs turned it on last year. Corey Gipson, year number 1, coming over from Northwestern State. They were sitting at 3-5 middle conference play, and then they caught lightning coming right down the stretch. They win, 7 out of their last 8, and they win 2 in the tournament, so that's 9 out of 10 before falling in a heartbreaker to Stetson in that classic ASUN title game. Corey Gipson bleeds Austin Peay. I mean, that's he went there, he played there. They opened up that new arena. They had some life in that program last year. It was great to see. Just spending my short time, 2 years at Austin Peay. I think they're kind of in that middle of the pack here in the ASUN. I don't think they lost too much, in my opinion, to warrant putting them in the top tier. But I think they're right in that tier 2 where, I don't know. I mean, they play 16 games here in the ASUN regular season. I kind of see them as a 9-10 win team again in the ASUN.
Yeah, so in his first 2 years as a D1 head coach, his offenses have been outstanding. Last year, this was the second best offense in the ASUN. Turned it over the second least amount of times. They were third best offensive rebounding team in the conference, third best 3-point shooting team in the conference, shooting at 40% from deep. Defensively, they need to take a little bit of a step up. This was the worst team per KenPom defensively. And you know what? They lose quite a bit from last year. If the offense is able to just kind of recycle itself, if Gipson is able to get this thing just humming each and every year, and a new core of players is willing to buy in defensively a little bit more, maybe that wasn't the ceiling last year. Maybe there's a little bit untapped. But I personally think that losing that much amount of production, you're going to take a small step back. So I have them right around the middle to the top of the bottom half of the conference standings, in my opinion, entering this year.
I think it's fair. Yeah, there's a lot of question marks for the Govs, but they finished strong. They have some momentum. I'm looking forward to watching the Govs this year.
Awesome. The next team up we're talking about today is the Bellarmine Knights. Bellarmine. But Colby says that to piss a lot of people off because it gets a reaction from all their fans that say you're pronouncing it wrong. But as we know, Colby, he's a rebel. If you tell him not to do something, that just means he's going to do it more. Bellarmine, I did it there. Bellarmine, bringing in 39% of their minutes from last year. That's 8th in the conference entering this season. They lose all 5 starters. Peter Suter, 32 minutes per game last year, 10.5 points, 4.5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.2 steals per game. They also lose Bash Veland, 32 minutes a game, 14.2 points per game, 5.3 boards, over 2 assists per game. Langdon Hatton, 27.8 minutes per game, 10.5 points, 7 boards. Garrett Tipton, 29.5 minutes, 9.8 points per game. And Alec Freem, 29.5 minutes, 7.8 points per game, 4.4 boards, 2.5 assists per game. Coming in through the transfer portal is Dylan Branson from SEMO. He played 21 minutes a game last season, averaged 4 points, 3.5 boards, 2.3 assists, and shot at 33.3% from deep. With a little bit more time, this guy might turn into one of the top scoring players on this team. Jack Karasinski comes in from William and Mary, 24.5 minutes from a season ago. He's a junior, 7 points per game, 5 rebounds a game. And then Miles Watkins coming in from the JUCO ranks, averaged 18.2 points per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, 2.5 assists at Pasadena City last season. This is a pretty experienced projected starting five. In total, I think they've got 7 or 8 juniors or older on this roster. Offensively, they're going to need to find a little bit of an identity. Ben Johnson should be able to help that. Last year he did play 32 minutes a game, 13.9 points per game, 3.5 boards, 1.5 assists. So you know what? One of those 20 minutes per game guys didn't start, but my fault. So they do bring about one starter, Ben Johnson. Actually, I don't know. I'm all over the place. I think they lose all 5 of their starters. This guy might not have played a ton of minutes. Somehow all the injuries, they're fucking up my starter statistic here. But Mac, Bellarmine has been a good program recently. Last year, not one of their better years.
They've been a good program for about 20 years. I mean, they were dominant at the Division II level, and he's had back-to-back losing seasons, which I think is going to find a way to write itself out here. I think I'm high on Bellarmine this year. I don't think he's going to have 3 straight losing seasons, Davenport. He's won over 400 games in his career. They have a system in place. They share the ball. We joke on it. It's a lot of pass, a lot of pivoting, a lot of fundamentals here at Bellarmine.
You must put the ball on the floor.
Yeah, I think he added a couple guys in the portal that are going to help him maybe be a little more athletic here this year. And I think that they're going to be better defensively. I like Bellarmine here, middle of the pack, back to where they were a couple years ago, before this rare outlier last year. I mean, I kind of like where they were in 22-23, right around 500. I think that's where I have Bellarmine this year. I don't see another bottom of the barrel season for Bellarmine. Davenport's too good a coach to have back-to-back bad years, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like worst case scenario last season. So
with all those injuries and the luck metrics were like, this is one of the most unluckiest teams. So
yeah,
let me go ahead.
My prognostication, at least for Bellarmine in the ASUN, is that I think a few other teams are going to take a little bit of a step back below Bellarmine, and by nature of that, Bellarmine's going to climb into like the middle area of my rankings this season.
Let's go.
All righty. Before we continue on with the ASUN conference preview, Underdog Fantasy Pick'em is always adding new things to their awesome menu. They now have first touchdown projections, and there are a ton of ways to win with NFL, college football, MMA, MLB, and more. Their lobby is jam-packed with profit boosts and no sweat entries. You can now use specials and boosts on all flexed entries as well. Sign up today with our promo code TCESGPN to claim your special pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCESGPN. And we are back here on the college basketball experience. Cannabis Cappers saying cocktail run. What's the line? I would say that was under 45 seconds. That was a pretty good first time for the season. The next team,
Miller.
What's up?
Said had to get me a Miller. It's Miller time.
There we go. The next team here that we're talking about is the Central Arkansas Bears. TVDBJ is saying 2.5, smashing the over for amount of beers for Mac in the show. Central Arkansas, from a season ago, they did finish 11th, 9-23 overall, 5-11 in conference. I apologize for not giving up the records from last season for the first two programs that we did. I just realized that I didn't do that. Central Arkansas, they returned 41.8% of their minutes from last season. That's fifth most in the ASUN entering this year. However, they are the least experienced team in the preseason heading into the season. Central Arkansas loses a good amount of bodies. I would say probably maybe addition by subtraction from a second to last place team last year. So we'll see how that kind of works out because they do bring in new head coach John Schulman. Mac, do you want to talk about Schulman a little bit here before we talk about the roster?
Schulman's a proven winner, man. He went to 2 NCAA tournaments at Chattanooga. He was there from 04 to 13. But then really, once he was done at Chattanooga, he went to the high school ranks for a little bit, and then he went to Alabama Huntsville, a really good D2 program. Went 112-39. I like him the second time around here at the Division I rank. So I think this is an underrated hire, especially at Central Arkansas. It's where Scottie Pippen went to school. They've been investing in their resources a little bit more there. I think that they're kind of sneaky here in year one of the Schulman era. I don't think they're going to finish in last like a lot of these people are saying. So, yeah, high on the Bears, baby. Let's go Arkansas, Central Arkansas.
Okay. So they lose 9 players from last year's team. Tucker Anderson put up 14.5 points per game, 3.5 boards, 31 minutes per game, 27.5 minutes per game last year. Masai Oloworkiri, 8 points per game there for him. Daniel Sofield, 24 minutes per game, 9.5 points per game. And then Brendan Simmons, Asaka Niang, Tucker Bowman, Caleb Carr, Johannes Karipsu, Carl Daughtry Jr., Ibe Clintman, and Cameron Hunter, the big one here that I haven't named yet. 34 minutes per game, 17 points per game, 5 boards, 4 assists, 1.5 steals from a season ago. All of them gone. Actually, Cameron Hunter didn't play last year due to injury, but he still is not returning to this team this year. Transferring in from the D3 ranks is Braden Fagbami, transferring in from Johns Hopkins. Played 30 minutes per game last year, 13.5 points, 5.5 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.3 steals per game. With I think they're the Blue Jays, Johns Hopkins. They're testing my lacrosse knowledge here. Yes, I was right.
I think so. I think they are.
Yeah, they're definitely a blue bird. I think it's Blue Jays, but Elias Cato is the biggest returnee from a season ago. 29 minutes per game, 11.9 points, 6.1 boards. For me, I'm not going to be high on this roster coming in. You're a little bit higher on the coach than I am on Schulman, but I think the Bears are near the basement here.
I think they're a team that struggles. I like to talk about the struggles in November, December. They find their identity, first-year head coach, and I think they're a pain in the ass in year number one for some of these top teams in the league. Kind of like Austin Peay was in year one at the end with Gipson. The year before that, who was it? It was Grant Leonard at Queens. They were really tough in year number one. I think you see that a lot in this league. Jordan Mincy, his first year, they overachieved in year number one there. So I think they overachieve here. I don't have them in the basement. So that's one of the hot takes. Let's go.
All righty. Next up, we're talking about the regular season champions from a season ago, the Eastern Kentucky Colonels. They finished 17-14 overall, 12-4 in the ASUN. EKU only returns 23.6% of their minutes from a season ago. That's 9th out of the 11 teams returning in the ASUN. And they're the second least experienced team here in the preseason. What they did lose, they lost 5 guys that played over 20 minutes a season ago. Isaiah Cozart, who played 31 minutes per game, 15.6 points per game, 10 boards. Leland Walker, 28.5 minutes per game, 15.5 points. Tayshawn Comer, 25.5 minutes per game, 7.8 points per game. Michael Moreno, 28 minutes per game last season. Colin Cooper, who played 22 minutes per game. John Ukumadu, who put up 5.3 points per game, 4.4 boards, and only 14 minutes per game. He transfers out as well. Coming in from D2 Eckerd, George Kimball III, who played 30 minutes per game last season, 19.5 points per game, 3 boards, 4.5 assists, almost 2 steals a game. This was a guy that was probably a volume shooter at the D2 level, hoping to probably transition into more of a distributor this year because his shooting percentages weren't the best. Jordan Crawford played 16.5 minutes a season ago, 43% from deep, 45% from the floor at Charleston. He transfers in. He averaged 4 points per game in 16.5 minutes, 3 boards as well. Mayar Wool also transfers in from Charleston. He played 5.5 minutes per game. He's a 6'8" sophomore. Cyril Martinov coming in from Eastern Michigan is a 7-footer, 12.8 minutes per game, 2.5 points, 2.5 boards, shot at 51% from the floor season ago. Another big man from VMI. We were talking about this yesterday. VMI actually low-key does pretty well just churning out big men, and they transfer after their 4 years for a grad year, another year of basketball. DJ Nussbaum, he played 23 minutes a game for the Keydets, averaged 6.8 points, 3.8 boards in a little bit over half a game a season ago. And then Tyler Andrews from UNKC, 13.5 minutes per game. Ivans Paul, don't know how I would pronounce that, but he averaged 8 points per game, 6.2 boards per game, almost 2 blocks a game at Florida Southwestern State a season ago. And then he can't go unnamed. He does return Devontae Blanton, a senior, 6'6" wing, 30.5 minutes, 14 points per game, 5.5 boards, 2.5 assists. This guy's probably going to lead the team once again in scoring. A lot of transfers surrounding him. I actually like the Jordan Crawford piece quite a bit coming in for Charleston. I think with a lot more playing time, this kid might turn into a baller as well. And then Kimball, who averaged 4.5 assists a game at the D2 level. I think there's a really good core that needs to take place. EKU might not be one of those teams that's great in November, December, but this MAC, I think, is a team that's truly going to come on during conference play.
Absolutely. And AW Hamilton is in his 7th year. They take pride in playing one of the most entertaining brands of basketball, 40 minutes, press you, get in your shit, try and turn you over. And they've been able to really get this thing going. I mean, winning the regular season last year before that, they won 23 games. I think they've set the attendance record back-to-back years at EKU. So they got a lot of momentum in this program. I know they lost a lot, but they're going to get better and better, like you said, like you alluded to. This is a team I think that will be playing their best ball in January and February. And the AW Hamilton sit-down interview will air next week. I just realized I had not released that one yet. I should have timed it up. I should have released it right before we went live. But, he likes his team. They're young, but they're hungry and they're buying in. And I think you're going to see the dividends in January and February like some of these other teams.
Awesome. I like EKU. Like I said, last year I picked them to win this conference. They have good culture under AW Hamilton, that's for sure. Yeah. Florida Gulf Coast is the next program in our alphabetical order that we're talking about here today. FGCU, a season ago, they went 14-18 overall, 8-8 in conference. This was a team that returned quite a bit of experience, had a couple of good gets in the transfer portal as well, and just didn't really live up to the preseason hype. 40.7% of the minutes from last year's team returned. That's the 7th most in the ASUN in the preseason, but they're the 3rd most experienced team in the preseason here for the ASUN under Pat Chambers. They do lose a couple of guys due to graduation. Isaiah Thompson, who averaged 14 points per game and 30 minutes per game. Cyrus Largy, Franco Miller Jr., Dakota Rivers. All of them have moved on from the program. A couple of transfers here as well. Chase Johnston, who played 29 minutes per game, 9.7 points per game. Zach Anderson transfers out, who averaged 12.8 points in 31.8 minutes. And Andre Weir is out, and he had some potential. He was 6'10", only had 13.5 minutes per game last year, scored 6.3 points per game, 5.2 boards. Coming in from the transfer portal, Columbia point guard Xavier McLean, a graduate senior, 20.7% or 20.7 minutes per game last season, 9.2 points per game, 3 rebounds, 1.8 assists. Shot at 42.6% from 3, 56.6% from the floor in his limited time on the court. Jevin Muniz comes in from Delaware State. 36 minutes per game, almost 15 points per game, 3.5 boards, 3 assists, 1.5 steals per game. Michael Duax transfers in from Northern Iowa, 14 minutes per game, 3.8 points per game. Shot it very well from 3, 55% as a 6'5" forward, 51% from the field. And then Rory Stewart transfers in from Rhode Island, 5.6 minutes per game there for the Rams. Returning, they do have 2 guys that have good potential coming into this season. Graduate senior Keyshawn Kellman, he's a 6'8" forward, 24.5 minutes per game, 12.2 points per game, 7 boards. And then Dalian Johnson, who is a senior, 6'3", 29 minutes per game, 10.8 points per game, shot at 39.1% from deep a season ago. Mac, I really like some of the transfer portal gets here. And I think this backcourt can really shoot the heck out of the ball. They got 3 guys that shoot the 3 very well. I'm going to be high on the Eagles coming into this year.
You drinking the Gulf Coast Kool-Aid again?
Yeah, I'm. Colby got burned by them, not me. So I'm ready to buy the sword.
Dude, they man, you watch them. What was it at Indiana? It was at Pitt.
Indiana was trash last year. We should have saw that writing on the wall.
But I mean, they were in the game the entire time. They took Pitt. I mean, them and Pitt was back and forth. I think Pitt pulled away late.
And the big issue with this team last year was Isaiah Thompson's health. It was always on and off, whether he was going to play, whether he was not. And then there was a big stretch of games where he didn't play. So, yeah.
And from a roster standpoint, I like Gulf Coast a lot. They've been so inconsistent under Chambers. Maybe year 3's a year. I think I got to put them in that 4 to 6 range, probably maybe 4 to 7, just because of their raw talent. But yeah, I mean, this is a team, high variance team in my opinion, because of the backcourt. But I need to see the consistency. So I think the highest ceiling and maybe the lowest floor is Florida Gulf Coast in this league. So interested to see the Eagles here in 24-25.
I'm going to push back a little bit. They do have really good defensive foundation. Since COVID, they've not had a worse defense than 5th in the ASUN, and they're locked down around the arc. So the Eagles, they do.
Standards higher there, though. They've won and they've been to a Sweet 16 in the last decade.
I agree, but I'm just saying, like, I'm going to be high on them coming into the year. I don't know if I'm going to have them winning, but I think they're definitely a contender. They also are another team with, I mean, all of these teams in the ASUN are going to have some, transfers coming in, and it'll just take some time for this team to really get going, I think.
And to your point, Noah, 12-4 won the league last year. I forget what league, what other league. Maybe it was the Patriot League where we were like, outside
Patriot
of Colgate,
League had 2.
No, but like outside of Colgate, everybody was in that clump of 10-6, and then Colgate obviously was the outlier. They didn't have an outlier. 12-4, then you had 2 11-5s, you had a 10-6, and then you had a clump of 7-9, 9-7, and then when your basement's 4-12, I think that speaks to a little bit of the parity in your league.
100%. There, like to your point, there was a team that finished with 4 losses, 5 losses, 6 losses, 7 losses, 8 losses, 9 losses, 10 losses, 11 losses, 12 losses. They were one by one, single file line in this standings from a season ago. Before we continue on with the ASUN conference preview, The college basketball experience is brought to you by BetUS. Bet with the best in the business, BetUS, who's been around for more than 30 years. Bet anywhere, and BetUS is available in tons of locations, including internationally. BetUS just launched an all-new live betting experience where you can easily deposit using cryptocurrency and get lightning-fast payouts when you want to cash out. Use our link to sign up today and get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betus. Promo code SGPN so they know we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. SGPN's proud partner Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on moneyline spreads, totals, and props. Rhythm AI had a great NFL week too. 22.5% ROI on NFL spread bets and 44.3% return on investment on NFL moneyline bets. Build your own model, or you can copy one of the top performing models from the leaderboard. And Rhythm will give you a model with predictions for every game and player prop, and also it gives you a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM today. And we are home free today on the college basketball experience where Moneyline Mac and I are previewing the ASUN. We are 5 teams through, 7 left, home free. Like I said, the next program here that we're going to talk about is Jacksonville. The Dolphins last year were 16-17 in conference, 5-11 in conference, 16-17 overall. Look, I think I can't really explain what happened with Jacksonville last year. They had the best defense in this conference. Injuries.
Yeah, they were super banged up, but he didn't have his second and third best player for till the conference tourney when they got to the semis.
Gotcha. So they do. So they had the best defensive efficiency according to KenPom, creating the most turnovers and the most steals last season per possession. They returned 46.3% of their minutes, which is the 3rd most in the ASUN this year, with the 4th most experience in the preseason. They lose Jesse Powell, 28.3 minutes per game, 9 points per game. Bryce Workman, who averaged 13 and 8.5 in 28 minutes. Jarius Cook also is out of eligibility, 22.7 minutes per game, 6.8 points per game. And Dewan Pruitt, 19.3 minutes per game, 4.5 points, 4.1 boards. Jonathan Curtis, Josiah Sabino, and Jalen Griffith also transfer out. Transferring in from D2 Ashland, just south of me in state of Ohio, Simon Wheeler, 32.5 minutes per game, 16 points per game, 3.5 boards, 5.5 assists, 1.5 steals, 42.5% shooting from the field. So this is another really, really good distributing for point guard transferring in to the ASUN. The big name from last year is Robert McRae V. His dad listens to our show quite a bit.
Oh.
So shout out to the McRae family. 5 strong so far. McRae played 30.5 minutes per game last year, 18.5 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists per game, shot at 36% from 3, 50% from the field. And Marcus Nyblack also is going to round out the backcourt here, a 6'2 guard, 24 minutes per game, 10.2 points per game, 3.5 boards, 2.5 assists, over a steal a game last year, shot at 41.4% from 3, 45.1% from the floor. Stephon Payne, 50% field goal percentage in 22.5 minutes. He averaged 7.3 points, 6.1 boards with an expanded role. He could be a really good role player on this squad. And then Donovan Rivers as well, 56.7% from the floor in 17 minutes, where he averaged 3 points and 3.6 boards. I think there's a lot of potential in this Dolphins squad to take a giant leap up the conference standings. Like I said, the defense was there last year, and it sounds like it was injuries that was kind of slowing down the offense from just kind of having some rhythm and some gel.
Yeah, and I mean McCray might be preseason player of the year coming back. So shout out to Robert McCray. I like this Jacksonville team. I think snake bit kind of like Bellarmine last year. I think that they take a step back, or sorry, take a step forward. You look at it when they were humming early, they were 9-5. Then they got banged up and they hit the wall in January. But then they caught their stride. They beat Kennesaw in the tournament. They beat EKU in that 1-8 matchup, which was a great game. And they almost beat Stetson. Remember that crazy Stetson game in the semis? I like the Dolphins here in a little bounce back this year.
Awesome. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in our Twitch chat.
Yeah, some hack. Kick him out. Get out of here, jackass.
I also want to shout out Jakari Spence, who played 28.5 minutes per game at Monmouth. He's transferring in. Shot at 34.5% from deep, 45% from the floor. And then Zemi Wokaji from Dayton. So he didn't play too much last year for the Flyers, looking for more playing time. And then Kendall Munson. I looked into it. No, not Munson's son, but 6.5 points per game, 4 boards in 20 minutes per game at Portland State last year. I really like this roster from Jacksonville. I know we're high on Mincy. I look for a giant bounce back year for the Dolphins this season.
Oh, yeah. Our guy Mincy, baby. Let's go.
Next up is the Lipscomb Bisons. Don't ask me why there's an S on the end of the nickname. That's how the school is. The plural for bison is bison. But Bisons we're going with. Lipscomb 20-12 overall, 11-5 in conference last year. They returned 50.5% of their minutes, from a season ago. That's the second most in the ASUN. They returned the most experience heading into the season this year. And last year, they finished first in offensive efficiency on KenPom. They had a 41.5% three-point shooting percentage, which was the best in the conference. They also had the best free throw percentage in the conference, 80.1%. So the Bisons, very, very prolific offense from a season ago. They lose a couple of scores from last year. Darren Boyd, 17.5 points per game in 28 minutes. And then AJ McGinnis, 13.2 points per game in 29 minutes per game. Owen McCormick, 9 points in 22.6 minutes per game. And then Cody Head, 8.1 points per game in 18.7 minutes. Jason Montgomery, TJ Johnson, Paxton Davidson also transfer out of this is in the Nashville area, right? Lipscomb.
Yeah, they're right next to Belmont. Them and Belmont and Vandy are all right there next to each other.
Cool.
It's another beautiful.
So they all transfer out of Nashville. I have my questions. That's a great place to be. Returning. Let's have some fun. They have a senior backcourt duo in Joe Anderson and Will Pruitt that return. Pruitt dropped 15 points per game in 32 minutes per game. He also had 6 boards, 3.1 assists per game, over a steal per game, 43.4% from 3, 50.5% from the field. Joe Anderson, not too shabby himself, 40% from 3, 49.8% field goal percentage as well. 31 minutes per game for Anderson, 8.5 points, almost 3 boards, 4.5 assists, almost 2 steals per game. Those two very, very good. And they also get Kellen Boylan transferring in, a 6'7" wing who played 32 minutes per game at Air Force last year. He's taken a step down in conference play. Or in conference, where I think this kid's going to turn into a baller. He had 7.2 points per game, 5 boards, 2 assists, 1.3 steals per game. He shot at 42% from 3, 48.3% from the floor. And that's not even counting Jacob Ognisevich, who didn't play last year, but was the conference's leading scorer in 2022-23. He's a senior now, 6'8" forward. 26.5 minutes per game in 2023, where he scored 17.7 points per game, 4.5 boards on 60.7% from the field. And then the returning center played 15 minutes per game, Grant Asman. He averaged 4.5 points on 46% shooting. He can also stretch it out a little bit, 30% from three. Mac, Lipscomb's going to be very good offensively once again this year.
Yeah.
They're going to be a title contender.
Yeah, they very well may be the favorite. They finished second last year. Lenny Acuff, I mean, he's done a great job there. Back-to-back 20-win seasons. And for the Schulman, like I said, Schulman's underrated. Where'd Acuff come from before he was at Lipscomb? Alabama Huntsville. So another Alabama Huntsville coach coming over here. They've been a top 5 team in all 5 of his years in the ASUN. They've been second, third, fourth, and fifth. Can they finally get over the hump and get to first? They got all the pieces. I would say they're probably my front runner. Stay tuned until the end of the show.
They just need to take a step up defensively. Last year, 10th in defensive efficiency, according to KenPom. All this offense, they like to run, but they've got to improve a little bit on the defensive end. So we'll see how that does this year. But high on Lipscomb. Let's go to another team that we're both high on. North Alabama, the Lions. Your guy Tony Pujols bunch. You want to talk about Pujol here before we get into the team? Last year, let me do this first. Last year, North Alabama 15-17 overall, 8-8 in conference. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he transitioned them out of D2 to D1. Back-to-back winning seasons in the ASUN, 33 wins. So he's the all-time winningest coach at North Alabama. I mean, he's kind of been the OG to get this program off their feet, get them in the ASUN competitive. He's a really good coach. He gets the most out of his roster. And this upcoming year, in my opinion, is his best roster he's had. And you look at it, he's finished 6th or 5th every single year. I think this is the year he's going to take a step forward with all these guys coming back, including one of his own that went to UAB and came back.
One of the things I like is that this team converts on their freebies. In 3 of the last 4 years, this team has had a free throw percentage of over 75%. Last year, it was 78.5%, second best mark in this conference. They do return 41.9% of their minutes. That's the 4th most. They're the 5th most experienced team coming into the season, according to BartTorvik.com. The big name here is Jakari Lane does return, but let's talk about what they lose. Damian Forrest, 29 points per game, 10.5 points, 29 minutes per game, 10.5 points, 8.2 boards. KJ Johnson, 28.5 minutes per game, 14 points per game. Tim Smith Jr., 25.5 minutes, 9.5 points, 4.5 boards. All of them out of eligibility, I believe. Transferring out, Eoin Nelson, Drake James, Hugh Hargett, D'Italian Brown, who played 14 minutes a game, Josiah Fulcher, who played 17 minutes a game, Micah Clark, and Marco Foster, who averaged 5 points a game in 13.5 minutes last season. Coming in from the transfer portal is a guy that began his career for North Alabama and Pujol. Daniel Ortiz returns from UAB, where he played 16.5 minutes per game, 6.5 points per game, shot at 33% from 3. A Western Carolina transfer, Cornelius Williams, who's 6'9", 11.8 minutes per game, 3.5 points per game, 3 boards per game. And then Tay Fields, a D2 transfer from Missouri Western, who averaged 12.8 points, 9.5 boards, 3.9 assists as a 6'4" wing in 30.7 minutes per game. Like I said, Jakari Lane is the big name that's returning. 14.7 points per game, 3 boards, 3.8 assists, over a steal per game in 29 minutes last season. I really like North Alabama entering this season too, Mac. How about you?
Oh, of course I do. Sneak peek, man. They're going to be up there. Yeah, I mean, Jakari Lane, he may be the best player in the league. I mean, he's the best point guard in my opinion. So, and Pujol, like I said, man, he gets the most out of what he's got. Grew up with Frank Martin, so he's tougher than nails. So I'm looking forward to this version of the Lions here in the ASUN.
Awesome. I am too. I was high on them last year. I think they're going to be even better this
They
year.
were great in the conference tournament when they beat Lipscomb on that crazy game. And then they lost that double overtime crazy game to Austin Peay.
100%. Next up, alphabetical order for us is the North Florida Ospreys.
Coach Driscoll.
Yes, sir. And like you said, you were talking about it early in this show. They do lose Chaz Lanier from a team that was 16-16 last year, 9-7 in conference. North Florida, they return 51.9% of their minutes, which is the most in this conference, which honestly, for a conference as a whole, doesn't say a ton. They love to chuck up their threes, though. I think this was the most threes taken per game last year in the ASUN. Matthew Driscoll's squad does lose Chaz Lanier. He averaged 19.7 points per game, almost 5 boards in 33.5 minutes. Dorian James and Jake Vander Heyen is also out the door. James averaged 10 points per game in 28 minutes. Vander Heyen, 6.8 points, 3.1 boards in 19.5 minutes. John Zay, 15.5 minutes per game. Max Drilica and Trent Coleman also transfer out of the program, coming in 26.7 points per game at Garrett, which is JUCO. Alex Vargo. He started his career at Youngstown State. He had 6 rebounds per game, 3.1 assists per game last season as well. Southern Utah coming in is Nestor Diochuk, 6'9" junior forward. Cameron Oriole coming in from the Masters University down there in Augusta, Georgia, an NAIA school. And then Liam Murphy, Columbia transfer, who missed last season, did not play last season. So, I think the 2 big pieces that return for this year's team is Amitri Moss, a 6-foot senior, played 23 minutes per game last year, almost averaged 11 points per game, 3.5 boards, 3 assists, over a steal a game, and 48.8% from the field, 33.3% from deep. And then Nate Lilteris, 26.8 minutes per game, 10.5 points, and 4.2 boards per game, 35.4% from deep as a 6'6" forward, 44.7% from the field. Mac, give us your thoughts on the Ospreys for the upcoming year.
Yeah, the Ospreys, man. They, like you said, they lost a lot. They have a brand of basketball too. I mean, they play an entertaining offensive brand of basketball where they're going to score the basketball, shoot a bunch of threes, spread you out. And the different coaches in this league, they all had nothing but great things to say about Coach Driscoll, just of the job he's done down there at North Florida. I still think that they're going to be competitive. I know that they lost a bunch, but you just look at his track record there. He's always right in the middle of the pack. And when he gets a really special group, he'll win the league. So I'm just looking at it. Every single year there, he's finished 6 or higher, and he's been there since 2009. So a consistent, sustained success. I don't see them dropping into the bottom half or outside of that top 7. So I definitely think we'll probably have them right in the middle of the pack once again in the ASUN.
Yeah, that's kind of the home that they've built for themselves here. They've been a pretty steady program, I would say. And a lot of teams in this league actually do pretty well defending the 3. So that their philosophy, I wouldn't say like truly excels like it does in non-conference. But the Ospreys are always feisty and can shoot themselves into a blowout win any day of the week.
Yeah.
The Queens Royals are the next up in our list of teams that we're previewing here today in the ASUN. Last year, they finished 14-19 overall, 7-9 in the ASUN. Queens returns 41.5% of their minutes, which is the 6th most in the ASUN, the 2nd most experienced team entering this season. They lose Dayton Albury, who put up 17 points per game in 28.5 minutes, and AJ McKee, who put up 18.8 points per game in 31.5 minutes. Outside of those two, Gavin Rains, who played 24 minutes per game, BJ McLaurin, who played 25 minutes per game, Logan Threat, Kobe George, Luke Kroshik, and Jacoby Sabak. They all exit. Coming in, new players to this program here. Leo Colomario from Fresno State. He's a 6'7" grad senior, played 26.5 minutes for the Bulldogs last year, 56.6% from the field, where he averaged 6.7 points per game, 34.5% from three. We also have ASUN Anderson, the 98th ranked recruit from the JUCO level, 20.5 points per game, 3.7 rebounds per game, 4.6 assists per game from Ranger a season ago. Nasir Mann, transferring in from McNeese, where he played 19 minutes a game, 7.5 points per game, 59.1% from the field. And then Sawyer Mayhew, transferring in from UMass. Frank Martin had him redshirt last year, and he still has 4 years of eligibility. And he transfers over to Queens. Mac, I'm not too high on our Royals this year. I struggle to see where a lot of the offense is going to come from this year. And the ASUN, pretty offensive league. I think they're really going to need their defense to show up day in and day out to keep them in a lot of these games this year.
Oh, I like Queens this year. Year 3, Grant Leonard there. I think that they're making steps there. I think they're going to get back to that at the Division II level. They were one of the most dominant programs, and I think it's taken a year or two to transition out of that into the ASUN. Grant Leonard, he was with Bart Lundy while they were winning at Queens. He was there every step of the way at the end when they were right there to win the national championship year in and year out. I liked it. I think they have size. I think they're athletic. I think this could be. I saw somebody in the chat. I think this might be a little bit of a sleeper here. Coming in the ASUN, man. I think they've been around that 7-win mark. I could see them jumping with winning a couple of these close games rather than losing these close games over the last couple of years and being on the right side of it and getting over 500.
So what nerves me a little bit is they lose a couple of big time contributors from last year. Dayton Albury, who had 17 points per game, AJ McKee, who had 18 points per game. I don't see that coming in on paper. Maybe the JUCO transfer at Asian Anderson can do that for them. But 2 seasons ago, this was a team that finished 11th defensively. Last year, they took a step up, finishing 6th. But they really need that defensive part of their game to show up here, because I think they're lacking a little bit in the offensive department compared to quite a few of the teams that we've already previewed here.
Yeah, they pride themselves on athleticism down there. So I think they're zigging while everybody's zagging here.
Alrighty. I have them in the middle towards the back of my ASUN standings. You have them as a sleeper. It's good when we disagree a little bit.
Oh yeah. Give me the Royals, baby. Coach Leonard.
Our penultimate team on today's ASUN conference preview, the Stetson Hatters. They represented this conference as a 16 seed in the NCAA tournament last year, going 22-13 overall, 11-5 in conference. They lose their top 6 scorers from a season ago and return the least amount of minutes. 22.6% of their minutes come back from last year's team. They're the 8th team in experience rank on Torvik in the preseason here. They are going to have to rebuild this thing. Jalen Blackman put up 21.3 points per game. He transferred to Miami. Steven Swenson, 14 points per game and 33.3 minutes per game, 4.7 boards, almost 6 assists per game, over a steal a game. He's gone. Josh Smith transferred out after 8.5 points per game in 22 minutes. Sincere Harrison, he transferred. Alec Oglesby, who put up 10.7 points per game in 33.8 minutes. He's out of here. Giancarlo Valdez, Bruce Cano, Naheem Lewis, Jackson Huxtable, they all transfer out of North Florida. Transferring in is Andrew Taylor, Mississippi State transfer who played 11 minutes per game last year. He's a fifth-year senior. Average 4 points per game, 40% from three, looking for more court time this year. Josh Massey transfers in from D2 Wingate, good baseball program. 33.5 minutes per game, 16.5 points per game, 6 boards, 1.5 assists, 47.4% from the field there. Abramo Kenka transfers in from Wake Forest. Last year, this was about the same thing we saw from our guy McRae, a Wake Forest forward who didn't play much at all, transfers into this conference and drops 18 points per game. So again, have really no recollection on this guy at all coming out of high school, but a junior who's 6'6", looking to do some damage in the ASUN. And then Blaze Sagna, D2 transfer from Minnesota Crookston, who put up 21 points per game, 4.5 boards in 37 minutes per game. The big returnee, I would say, is Trayton Thompson in the front court, 7-footer. He's a senior, 16.5 minutes per game last year, averaged 4.5 points, 4 boards on 53% shooting. Also can stretch it out 33.3% from three if need be. Tristan Gross also returns after 20 minutes per game. What's your thought on the Stetson Hatters for 2024-25?
Yeah, Donnie Jones, man, got it done. Got to the tourney last year. They have been trajecting upward. 22 wins last year, 17 the year before. He completely rebuilt this program. He did it at UCF. He did it at Marshall. I think they're going to take a step back. Clearly, I mean, you look at Torvik. I mean, they pretty much lost everybody or majority of their guys from that team. But Donnie Jones is a good veteran coach. I think they'll get better in February and late January. But I think they definitely are a work in progress early with our Hatters.
Yeah, I've got this team falling back to probably the middle of the pack in the ASUN. I think I can trust the culture here to have them float, but overall, I think there's at least – I'm not going to put a number to it before we get to our rankings. We got one more team to go, but they're probably landing in the middle of my rankings here. Next up, we're talking about West Georgia. Welcome to D1 West Georgia Wolves. Coming in from the D2 ranks. They joined the ASUN conference. So I can't really pull any recency data or stats from years past. But, dude, they lose 4 of their 5 starters from last year.
That's rough.
Yeah. From what I can tell, I don't believe they pulled like a Sam Houston football and redshirted a bunch of people before this season, which could explain like why they were playing a bunch of seniors from last year and they just left. But 3 of the guys were transfers. Cameron Donalen, who averaged 16.5 points per game, and Zoddy Jackson, 22 points per game. They also lose Marlon Smith, who had 23 minutes a game, Cole Fisher, 23.2 minutes per game, and Amari Davis, who played 21.8 minutes per game. This is a complete rebuild, and Dave Moore, the head coach, who led them to a 27-6 record a season ago, is doing it through the transfer portal of the JUCO ranks. He brings in Demetrius Johnson II, who put up 14 points per game, 4 boards, 5.8 assists at Highland. Kyrick Davis, who averaged 17.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists per game at South Georgia State. Shelton Williams Dryden, who averaged 19.5 points per game, 9.5 boards a game, 1.5 assists at Milwaukee Area Tech, who's a D2 JUCO. D2 transfer from Lynn, Ricky Ballard, who played 27 minutes per game, 8 points per game, 4 boards, and Terrius Watson, who averaged 8 points per game in 7 minutes at Wofford in 2022-23. Didn't play last year. He redshirted. Colton Griffin. Yeah, Colton Griffin's the one returning starter from last year. 30 minutes per game, 8.1 points, 6.5 boards. But, I mean, taking a step up from D2 to D1 in the ASUN, who's not a shabby conference at all. I'm projecting a little bit of a rough here for the Wolves.
Yeah, they just have so many question marks. I think we see them take the bumps here, man, early on. I think just making the transition from Division II to Division I. I know we've seen a couple. We've seen some teams overachieve over the couple years, but I also just don't think that from a roster standpoint they're there to compete right away in the ASUN. So I don't see them doing what Queens did a couple years ago and being good right away. West Georgia is at the basement for me.
All righty. You ready for our preseason power rankings? And in a way, we're kind of trying to project the final season standings, predict who our regular season champion is going to be. We also do tournament champion prediction and also a sleeper and a bust. Currently, we don't have like KenPom projections, which we have determined, or like preseason conference standing or preseason conference polls, where we do kind of judge our sleepers and busts. So we're going to go off of last year's standings for those. So Mac, go ahead and lead us off with your 12th ranked ASUN team this season.
In the basement is going to be West Georgia, the Wolves.
Yeah, I align with you there. We're going to take welcome to D1 West Georgia. Might be a little bit of a rough rebuilding year for you.
You know, man, I said I think they're going to be better, but like these other programs are just, I think, a little bit better than them. I went Central Arkansas 11. I said they wouldn't finish last, but I think that there's a big gap. I think they're going to win like 6 games. So I think I got a big clump here coming up.
Yeah, I have Central Arkansas 11th as well. You're number 10.
Yeah, number 10, man. I can't believe I'm saying this. I have the defending champs. I have Stetson down here.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't have them that low, but they're in the bottom half, I think.
Yeah.
I have Queens 10th.
Oh, we're going to disagree on Queens. Good.
Yeah, not too high on that Royals roster this year. 9th for you. Go ahead.
I got Bellarmine at 9.
I do too.
I have them step up, but I think their roster still is a little bit a ways away.
Yeah, I have Bellarmine at 9. We align there. At 8, I have North Florida, the Ospreys.
I went the Govs here of Austin Peay. I think a little bit of setback. They lose a bunch. I think they'll be right there in the middle. So Austin Peay at 8 for me.
Okay. At 7, who do you have there?
At number 7, this is where I had North Florida. I had North Florida taking a little bit of setback after all the production that they lost, but I still like my guy Driscoll. I think he'll get him better and better.
Our Queens fan was laughing at where I ranked.
I know you're hating on Queens, man. This is a proud program.
Yeah, Cash B28 on Twitch. 7th, I have the Stetson Hatters.
Okay. So, I mean, you didn't have them that high.
They're right in the middle, slightly bottom half. At the top of the bottom half.
You keep showing me off when I see Kennesaw when I was just looking at KenPom a minute ago.
I know.
Kenesaw's not there anymore. At number 6, I think this is where I am going to go. My guys from Eastern Kentucky. I think a little bit of a step back because of all that they lost, but I think they're right in the middle of the pack this year. They'll be entertaining.
Yeah, I'm double checking one thing before I say the next one. I agree with you. I have Eastern Kentucky 6th as well. I just need to double check on the team that was in front of them, make sure I'm thinking of the right one. I am. So yeah, I have EKU 6th.
EKU at 6. All right, at number 5. I think I'm going to go Coach Mincy and the Jacksonville Dolphins.
Okay. I am going with Austin Peay after they have to repair their all-star backcourt from last year.
Okay. And number 4, this is where I had Queens. So I had Queens cracking the top 4, taking a jump from that 7-win bunch. I think they take a step forward year 3 of Grant Leonard. Number 4, I got Queens.
Yeah, it sounds like you're even higher on my sleeper team this year, which was technically Jacksonville. I have Jacksonville 4th. I had them jumping up from 10th a season ago.
Well, I had him 5th.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I guess I tuned you up there. My apologies.
All good. Yeah, just say you don't listen to me. It's all good. At three, I got the super talented team. I got Gulf Coast. I mean, they're super talented. I think that they're a little bit better than they were last year, but consistency is still the key there at Gulf Coast.
I am going to go with North Alabama 3rd. I like what they have. I think they take a little bit of a step up from where they finished last year. So give me the NAU 3.
NAU, baby. Let's go. At number 2, this is where I went my Lions in North Alabama. And then at number 1, I had Lipscomb. Lipscomb, I think, is built for the regular season. So I got the Bisons.
Yeah, I've got the prolific offense of the Bisons at 1 as well, in Florida Gulf Coast at 2. Your sleeper for the upcoming season.
Queens.
Mm-hmm.
Queens, baby. The Royals, year 3, baby. Making the jump this year. Grant Leonard.
I'm going to give it to you, and I think I have a legit for this conference, Jacksonville. So that was the first conference preview that I legitimately had a prediction where somebody in the bottom half of the conference was going to finish in the top 3 or top 4. So Chalky McGee was no longer chalk in the ASUN.
Who's your bust?
You know what? I might have talked about all the chalk, but I didn't have anybody truly bust. I'm gonna have to go with Stetson. I have them.
I had Stetson too. I mean, they won it and lost everybody.
I know. I mean, they're gonna be expected to take the step back. That's what, like, not having the preseason poll kind of sucks. That might be kind of where they're gonna be expected to finish. But yeah, they finished 3rd last year. I have them 7th. You had them 9th, right?
I had them 10th.
10th.
I had Bellarmine and Austin Peay right above them, and North Florida and EKU. Like, those teams have more coming back. I mean, I guess I could have went Bellarmine at 10, but you know me, man. I love Bellarmine. I think Bellarmine's due for some positive regression this year.
Blarmy.
Who wins the conference journey?
The conference tournament winner. You said Lipscomb's built for the regular season.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm just gonna say they're my favorite team in the preseason here. So that's kind of how I usually keep my predictions.
Chalk in the ASUN, the ones he never wins it.
When I like a team more than I like the second, but I think there's a little bit of gap, and I like the Bisons this year. I'm gonna predict them to pull off the sweep, and again, that's just me. I root for chalk in the 2nd and 3rd week of March. I want the best teams in the NCAA tournament. That's just how I roll.
Boring. Who won it 2 years ago is my question. It was
2 years.
It's been the 2 seed back-to-back years. The 2 seed wins it again. The Lions of North Alabama. Tony Pujol got him dancing with that backcourt and all that experience back. I'm all over the Lions to win the tournament. Lipscomb's going to get picked off early again, and then North Alabama is going to have the home court because remember they play that conference championship game at the higher seed site. So this is,
I think this is like the entire tournament.
It's great.
High seed host.
Dude, this tournament was on fire last year. Just off the top of my head, North Alabama, Lipscomb, absolute epic game. Eastern Kentucky. Jacksonville was an epic game. Austin Peay versus North Alabama, epic game. Stetson versus Jacksonville, epic game. Stetson versus Austin Peay in the title, epic game. I mean, every game was on fire in this tournament last year. Every game was a one-possession shit show down the stretch. I love the ASUN. ASUN, baby.
Awesome stuff. That's going to wrap up today's ASUN conference preview. Right after this, Mac and Colby are doing their bracketology college football show. You can find all of these basketball series that we're doing right now, the conference previews, the TC trims, Mac's college coaches tour where he's interviewed a bunch of mid-major college coaches. Like we said, we interviewed 7 coaches from the ASUN so far. Those are in a playlist. You can find the college baseball experience, the college basketball experience, college football experience, the Big 12 college experience, all down there as well. And you can also find, if you scroll to the bottom of the YouTube page, more from SGPN, because we've got something for everybody. MMA, NHL, NBA, MLB gambling podcast, or the sports gambling podcast, who hit hard in the NFL each and every day, and also dip their toes in some of the biggest sporting events each and every week. So let it ride in that department. This is going to wrap it up for Moneyline_Mac on Twitter for him, Noah B77 _ on Twitter for me, TCE on SGPN for the show's Twitter. This has been the college basketball experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we out of here.